Before we get into today's show, I want to invite you into a brand new free community that I've created called, well, the Think Unbroken community. If you are lost, if you're struggling, if you just need a little bit more support right now, especially with how crazy the world is, I invite you to come and join the free community, where not only is it a place to connect with other people, your peers, and myself who are on this healing journey, but I'll also be hosting a live monthly Q&A coaching session, again, for free. Communities for free, access is for free, 1 time per month coaching for free. All of this just because I really want to create a deeper connection and bond with you, the listeners of this podcast, who I appreciate more than I could ever tell you. All you need to do is just click the link in the description of today's episode, or go over to thinkunbrokenpodcast.com and click the link for community. Come and join us. I'll see you there. You're listening to the Think Unbroken podcast, and I'm your host, Michael Unbroken. I'm an author, speaker, coach, and advocate for adult survivors of childhood trauma and abuse. In this podcast, you will learn how to transform your trauma into triumph, turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, and go from victim to being the hero of your own story. You can learn more at thinkunbrokenpodcast.com, and of course, check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Think Unbroken Podcast. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last, 14 years of my healing journey, almost 14 years, which is incredible, is to think about my thoughts and to just take a step back and be like, why does this person do this to me? And if you're not willing to do that, like, you can't be helped. And I know that's so hard for people to hear. And I've interviewed incredible human beings, both male and female, who have been on this show, who have left abusive relationships, and they always acknowledge their responsibility. What did it really take for you to get to that place where you could acknowledge your role in this?
Yeah, so it actually was another rock bottom in the form of COVID, where my greatest fear came true, and that was I was forced to be alone with myself. And
Terrifying.
at the time, and that was terrifying, especially when all of the distractions that I was using to avoid and escape myself, because I was still carrying a tremendous amount of trauma, were removed. And I really realized, and it was then that I recognized that the most toxic relationship of all was not the relationship with the then abusive, now ex-husband. It was the relationship with myself. And it was in recognizing that the relationship with myself is not only the most important relationship that there is, but that every relationship in your life is just a mirror of that I really allowed myself to recognize the patterns that I was still living. It allowed me to recognize all the coping mechanisms I had developed to avoid the trauma that I was still holding on to. And that's really when I began, I would say, the real healing journey, because before then, I thought I could just think my way out. I thought I could use mindset and personal development to just high vibe my way through the trauma and avoid the part where you actually feel and
Yeah, that
process
doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Hello, toxic positivity. That was me. I was the high vibe chick. And it was incredibly toxic. And meanwhile, I had substance abuse problems. I was using drugs. I was basically snorting Adderall every single morning and a pharmaceutical crackhead, because I could just be more productive and I could do more. And if I could do more, then maybe I could finally feel like I was enough. And I had addictions to exercising, and I was always doing more, and it was still never enough, and eating disorders and all the things. I drank a lot of dumb bitch juice, and dumb bitch juice is the metaphorical concoction of using things outside of yourself to change how you feel inside. And it wasn't until I allowed myself to just pause, and COVID was that pause, and to stop running and hiding from myself and allow myself to have the courage to peek beneath the covers of what I was really hiding from and see all that was still there, see the trauma, see the parts of myself that were carrying so much shame and pain, and tracing that back all the way to childhood, that I actually began the real healing and reconnecting with my body and using somatic practices and real, like true deep healing tools, that I was able to actually start to experience the internal shifts that were necessary to change my external reality. And it was within transforming the relationship with myself that my life began to transform in a true, genuine way. Not just like, oh, it looks good on the outside again, but inside I still feel like I'm not enough. I still feel all this pain and shame. But I actually began to experience love and compassion and inner peace, and to not have panic attacks every single day. And it was a different experience in life. But it wasn't until I began to do that deep, deep inner healing work.
The implications of what it means to be raised in a household with love, without feelings, without affection, with this is the way that you act and this is how you should be, and the impact of that in our adulthood. Because we're ultimately always going to be the sum total of all of our experiences, right? So everything that we bear witness to in childhood, it gets ingrained in us, right? It gets implemented in us. We pay attention to it. We, for whether it's good or bad, decide that that is the way that we should behave in the world. So to have your feelings turned off, to be in masculine energy, which I'll probably have you define here in a second as well, and to also be pushing towards high achievement, while you would look at those things in childhood and think, these are great, this is how you navigate the world. It's like, but in adulthood, and especially when seeking a relationship and love and compassion, like it's actually a giant magnet of the polar opposite. It just pushes everybody away. I'm so curious, like as you were in this and you're like starting to notice, was there a moment? Because I think this is what happens for a lot of people. This is what happened for me in dating too. There was a moment where I sat and I realized, I was like, oh, the reason this isn't working is because of me. Right. And it was like just so abundantly clear. And that takes a lot of guts, first and foremost. I think you got to have some courage to look in the mirror. Was there a specific moment for you where you're like, wait a second, I'm the problem?
Yes, absolutely. So my transformation point was, I think when I was having all these heartbreaking experiences, men fizzling out, ghosting, things not working out, just like guys wanting to just take me to bed, not wanting to get to know me as a person. Um, I just said, men are intimidated. Men are intimidated by my brains. Men are intimidated by my success. Men are intimidated because I have an opinion. It was my narrative to protect myself. It was my narrative to not look deep within myself, because when we put the problem on the other side, at least we can absolve ourselves of personal
Mm,
responsibility. But it was when I met a man who was far more successful than I was. And, he was a lawyer from New York, and there was like electric physical attraction, and he treated me so well, and everything was going great. And then 2 months down the connection, his efforts started to dwindle. I stopped hearing from him. And of course, my feminine intuition said, if he's not messaging, he's not interested. But I was surrounded by all these equally masculinized German girlfriends who were like, come on, text him. He just wants to hear from you and figure out what the problem is and solve the problem and, take it ahead. And so I remember messaging him and saying, hey, is everything okay? I haven't heard from you. And him going, you're so lovely. You're so attractive. I like you so much. I just don't feel it. Like, I just feel like our connection is not deepening, And so I don't think it's working. And I think that was my moment of, pure heartbreak. I think I went into like this angry, bitter energy from like 2 hours that evening, where I was like, uh, all men are like this, and I hate guys, and I'm gonna like just get super successful, and I don't need a man, and I'm not gonna like even look at this aspect of my life. It's not working. And then I woke up the next morning and I was like, Sami, you are the common denominator in all of these
mm,
experiences.
mhm.
And and don't give up on love, because
Look, if you're still buying weed from some guy named Trevor in a parking lot, you're doing it wrong. Mood.com delivers legal THC products straight to your door: gummies, vapes, flour, the good stuff. No sketchy DMs, no med card. Just add to cart, check out, and boom, it's at your doorstep. It's legal in all 50 states thanks to the Farm Bill, and Mood's products actually work. Seriously, this isn't gas station garbage. It's small batch, lab tested, real results. Go to mood.com, use code FIRST20 for 20% off, and never run dry again. That's mood.com. Go get lit, legally.
This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy and features real testimonials.
This was our first time trying therapy, and honestly, it was long overdue. Looking back, we just wish we had started sooner.
Regain's qualified therapists help couples when they can't get there on their own.
We thought it was intimacy issues, but Andrea helped us uncover a deeper root cause we hadn't even realized was there.
Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. Regain, powered by BetterHelp.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Because I think love is that thing in life that really brings us to our knees, and we feel extremely vulnerable in love. I think success is so much easier to achieve because you can push through and control so much more than you can in love. Because in love, there is another party involved, and they may or may not want to be with you. They may or may not like you. And that involves rejection, and rejection involves vulnerability, and we all resist vulnerability. And so that was the day when I woke up and I was like, no, I'm not going to give up on love. I know I have a very good heart, and I know the man who's going to really get to experience the real Sammy is going to be so lucky. And I'm going to work for that. I'm going to work to bring out that real Sammy. And of course it was a journey because, the men I was attracting before I did the inner work and before I, which today I call my 6-step love success framework, today I call it that. But back then, I understood that I was just showing up with a mask and dating. I had a mask on and I had walls up, and nobody could really experience the real Sammy. It was just like the strong, successful facade. It was the impression I wanted to give men. And so the work involved, putting that mask down and letting the man in front of me see the true me, even if it felt uncomfortable, even if it felt scary, even if it brought up fears of judgment and rejection.
I want to narrow that in because I think it's important, because a lot of people, I've coached thousands of people over the years, and I'll coach anybody at any time for 10 minutes for free. I always have, I always will. And that's people reaching out and ask for help. Because at least here with what we've been able to create at Think Unbroken, that's accessible.
Yeah.
Most people don't feel like they have access to anything or anyone, but there's always someone.
Mm-hmm.
What role does courage play in that moment, if any?
Yeah, well, it plays a huge role, because so many people, if you've lived in isolation or if you've never really sat with rejection before, really allowed yourself to orient to rejection, and you live your life constantly trying to run away from rejection because it feels like it could potentially kill you, it feels really unsafe to be potentially rejected by someone. We're looking at a nervous system, looking at it from a nervous system lens. We are humans who are wired for connection. And especially if you experience trauma as a kid, and a lot of that trauma came relationally between a parent who wasn't able to love you unconditionally, or a caretaker of some sort if you didn't have parents that weren't able to love you unconditionally, someone potentially rejecting you if you reach out for help can trigger that relational rupture of you feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not loved unconditionally. Nobody loves me. I am alone. I have to do this alone. And so what I've noticed in my practice is people won't reach out for help because it doesn't feel safe. So, and the reality is that when you reach out and you use your voice, you allow someone else to step into that space. But you have to start thinking differently and feeling differently into that, because it can oftentimes be rooted in trauma. If it's hard for you to ask for help, chances are there is some sort of relational pattern that's making its way in to your current situation where your nervous system is saying, if I reach out for help and I'm potentially rejected, it means death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people don't reach out for help, is because their nervous system is pinging survival.
You know you're not taking care of your health to the point that you're sick. You know you're in shitty friendships to the point that you're being taken advantage of. The actual question that I've come to find becomes the kind of the marker for the shift in life is, how long are you going to put up with it?
Yeah.
And how long are you going to wait until you take action? Where's the intersection here between the affirmation and the self-love and the action required? Like, how do people actually take those steps? How do they actually create action, build momentum, and have transformation?
One of the biggest things that has helped me is training my brain to see the good in everything. You know, nobody is perfect. We all go through shit. We all go through trauma. I can sit here and in self-pity and tell you and cry about how my ex-husband was a manipulator, how he abused me emotionally and mentally and sometimes even physically. But at the end of the day, I chose to find good in that. I always say, when you want something, it doesn't come to you on a gold platter. It comes to you in the form of challenges. And as toxic and as unhealthy the marriage and the whole relationship was, I wouldn't change it for the world, but I wouldn't go back. And I say that because I grew up in a household where my parents were born and raised in Poland, and then they came to the States when they were around 18 years old, and they figured it out, and then they had my brother and I. And they did everything that they could to provide for our family and in the physical. But when it came to communication, emotions, all of that was completely non-existent. So I was an emotional being. I didn't know how to communicate. I had anger issues, all of it, you name it. And then when I was telling myself, I was like, God, I want to be more emotionally stable and I want to communicate better. And when I said that, I was introduced to my ex-husband at 20 years old, and he completely tore me apart. And it wasn't until about a year of being with him, I knew I wasn't supposed to be getting married to him. I knew I wasn't supposed to be moving in with him. I knew I wasn't supposed to be with him for the long term. But eventually I learned that he was the answer to my prayers, because he was ripping me apart so I had the opportunity to rebuild myself. And when I started to be grateful for that, I always encourage people, be grateful for everything, because you will not be given anything that you can't handle. And don't be surprised if you ask for flowers and you get rain, because you can't have flowers without rain. And that was the same thing. I couldn't learn how to control my emotions if my ex-husband didn't completely blow up my emotions every day. I couldn't learn how to be mentally resilient if he didn't try to manipulate me every day into thinking I'm a terrible person, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm fat, all the whole 9 yards. And being grateful for those challenges. I know it can be hard to look in the moment and say, this shit sucks, but one day I'm going to be grateful for it, because you should be thankful that you're not where you used to be. And I always tell people, be grateful you're not where you used to be, because the future ahead is brighter if you choose to view it that way.
Thank you so much for listening to Think Unbroken. Please share this episode with someone who could use it and help us move forward in our mission of ending generational trauma in our lifetime. And if you would, please take 5 seconds to pop on iTunes or Spotify, hit that 5-star, leave a review, and you can also reach out to us on social at Michael Unbroken or at Think Unbroken. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel at think unbroken. Thank you for being a part of Unbroken Nation, my friends. And until next time, be unbroken.